And we begin in Kenya, where the country says it will withdraw its troops from the UN peacekeeping mission in South Sudan. This is after the United Nations sacked a Kenyan who led the force. A UN inquiry accuses Lieutenant General Johnson Mogoa Kimani Ondieki of not responding to an attack on a hotel in the South Sudanese capital, Juba, in July. The inquiry also found that during the assault, civilians in the hotel were subjected to and witnessed murder, sexual violence and torture. The UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon expressed alarm at UNMISS's failures. The Kenyan government has rejected the findings of the inquiry. Well, let's return now to Robert Nagila in Nairobi, where a press conference is to be held on the said withdrawal of troops from South Sudan following the sacking of its army general by the United Nations. Robert, what more can you tell us, though, about the Kenya government? What is the Kenya government saying exactly about its troop withdrawal from South Sudan?
Well, thank you, Beatrice, and apologies for that technical hitch. Now, in a statement sent to newsrooms late Wednesday evening, the Kenyan government is basically saying that the sacking of Lieutenant General Ondieki, a decorated Kenyan officer by the United Nations, is basically an attempt by the United Nations to cover up for its shortcomings. Now, in that statement, they mention a couple of areas where they say that there were specific problems which they have put on the table which have not been sorted out. So blaming Lieutenant General Ondieki was very, very unfair. Now, they say that part of the problems are the structural command, the way UNMISS operates in South Sudan, and its mandate as well. And it says that that needs to change for UNMISS to be able to effectively carry out its mandate. However, it says that this sacking is clearly an attempt by the UN to basically cover up that situation. And they categorically refuse to accept any blame on the part of the general. Now, in that statement, the United Nations also said that it was giving Kenya a chance to to nominate somebody else in place of Lieutenant General Ondieki. Kenya categorically refused to do that, saying that it was not interested in that because they would then be accepting the report that was released on that particular crisis. Beatrice?
Well, Robert, the Kenyan government has been very instrumental in assisting South Sudan with its peace process. Isn't there a concern from government quarters, though, that any withdrawal of troops from South Sudan may negate the gains that have been made in that peace process?
Well, Beatrice, in short, the Kenyan government, I beg your pardon, in short, the Kenyan government is very, very angry with the action taken by the United Nations, and by taking this move to withdraw its troops. We estimate about 1,200 or so troops in there, including officers who've been there for quite some time. Kenya is basically saying that they're not interested in taking part in this process unless the United Nations can look within itself and revamp or reorganize UNMISS mission in South Sudan. Now, Kenya is basically refusing to accept any blame over the events of that particular day, over what happened over those few days meet this year. I just spoke to an official from the Foreign Affairs Ministry, and one of the things he asked me was, did the United Nations really want UNMISS to go to war with South Sudan? Because basically, as far as they are concerned, that is what that report seemed to suggest, that they should have taken on South Sudanese forces. How that would have come out, nobody really knows. Another point they make is that there's a lot of diplomatic speak in that particular statement. Kenya's also said that it's disengaging itself from that process. Now, what this basically means, made to understand, is they're leaving the door open that they may return at some point to the peace process. But as of this moment, Kenya says it's withdrawing its troops with immediate effect and disengaging itself from the South Sudanese process. Now, how this is likely to affect any other peacekeeping operations that Kenya is involved with the United Nations across the continent remains to be seen. But for now, it appears it will just affect South Sudan. How this moves from here, well, it does appear that the ball is now in the United Nations court, and we are waiting for that reaction. Now, in terms of hearing from the Kenyan government, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Affairs. We're still waiting to see whether there'll be a press briefing. We know that there have been several media outlets asking the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for an interview or for that reaction. We are yet to get it. They simply told us that they were still making arrangements and they would inform us if there was going to be a briefing on South Sudan. Beatrice?
Right, Robert Nigila for us there following tabs on the South Sudan story from Nairobi.